I'm really excited to be here. Really, low-code application development, you'd be surprised at how much you can accomplish with low-code. And I think by the end of my session, I hope that you'll come to the same conclusion that I have. And that is that really hand coding should be an exception, not the norm. So let's get started. Just a little bit about myself again. I'm based in Reston, Virginia, and I'm the architect and design lead for Oracle Apex. Part of my job is to develop the user experience for Oracle Apex, the platform. And the other part is to work on these special projects which use Apex. Most recently, we were involved in developing a number of pandemic systems to combat COVID-19. Today's outline is really quite simple for me. I'm going to give you a quick introduction of the sort of status quo and how application development is approached. Then I want to give you an introduction into what low code is and how Oracle Apex fits that definition, and finally get into the actual demonstration. So let's first talk about data. Now, data is often considered to be the world's most valuable resource, or at least that's what the economists said. And the conclusions they found are really quite interesting. They said that data is such a valuable asset to a company. It's equal to an organization's employees or their intellectual property. And the value of this data can be seen through all the acquisitions that are happening. For example, WhatsApp was purchased by Facebook for $19 billion. That's more than $40 per user of the platform at the time. Now, WhatsApp isn't really a complex application. It's a social network that allows you to have real-time messaging. It's like a messaging application. What made it worth $19 billion is the amount of data that's collected using WhatsApp. The same can be said for LinkedIn, recently purchased for $26 billion. This article goes into a lot of detail and shows that organizations that can use data to drive their decision-making processes, they're subject to gain approximately $430 billion in business benefits. So that's a very finite number, but I think you'll find that if you're able to use data to your advantage and make sense of that data, you'll be able to drive your business growth. And this article also showed that really only about 29% of businesses are even doing this right now. So how do we get on that trend and make use of data that we already have to make better decisions? Well, once you have data, it's not enough just to take a look at that data. You're going to need to build something on that data. You're going to need to build applications or see that data in new ways. So let's take a look at what application development looks like in the enterprise. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that it's often very expensive. With every line of code you write, there is a cost associated with that line of code. You'd have to author it, debug it, review it, tune it, manage it, upgrade it. And the bigger the task, the more people involved, the greater the complexity, the more overhead. And then it also is quite slow. And that's hand in hand with being very expensive. Your development processes, they need to be able to adapt to these ever-changing business requirements. The days of waterfall development are over. And if you're not iterative and flexible, and if you're not on time, it's very unlikely that the business needs are going to be met. There's also minimal collaboration that happens. Minimal collaboration between the application developers, the project managers, the business users, the end users. End users are often represented by business users that work with the analysts to gather requirements. Requirements are fed to IT managers. Those requirements are then handed off to developers, and then they build something. There's just no easy partnership here. And finally, there's often a very large backlog. There's often many enhancements or many systems that need to be built, but that's not going to happen because there's something else that's too important to focus on, right? So there's a lot of these small problems that are never being solved. And what happens when you have a lot of these small problems? Well, the business is going to find a way to solve that problem. And maybe that means it's going to solve it using the wrong tools. Paper, word processing files, spreadsheets. It could be anything. The business will always find a way to solve the problem. So let's take a look at spreadsheets. Managing data in spreadsheets is really quite challenging. And it's the most common way for business users to share data. How many times do people open up a spreadsheet and just start tracking information? It happens all the time. So now let's talk about low code. And to do that, I just want to give you a quick definition of what low code means. If you look at Wikipedia, a low code development platform, it's defined as software that provides an environment for developers to build applications using a graphical user interface and configuration rather than traditional computer programming. That means that you're building something, but not coding it necessarily. And what are some of the benefits of low code? Well, it's easy on-ramp, meaning it's fast to get started. You don't have to be an expert to start building applications. It's super productive. So with minimal effort, you can deploy feature-rich applications and use feature-rich components within your applications. It's accessible. And by that, I mean that it's accessible to more than just the highly trained and full-stack developers. It broadens the pool of people in your organization that can solve these business problems. It's also scalable. And while this has performance implications, I also mean that it's unbounded or unconstrained. You're not living in a box. Most low-code applications start small, but they grow in complexity and the breadth of functionality. And using a low-code platform enables you, or at least it's a good one, will enable you to scale as your problem scales. Low-code platforms are extensible, meaning you're not constrained by the feature set that comes with it out of the box. Every business has custom requirements, custom business flows, and that functionality sometimes might not be available day one or might not be there right away. But you can add that functionality using plugins, integrations, custom code to extend the platform. And finally, low-code solutions are about delivering rich functionality to your end users with minimal effort and minimal code. So in 2024, Gartner had this really interesting quote. They said that by 2024, low-code application development will be responsible for more than 65% of application development activity. And that's really quite interesting. So why would someone want to use low-code? Well, with low-code solutions, it takes less effort to build applications. So you can build applications much faster. You can deliver solutions much faster than competing technologies. You can deliver much higher quality solutions. And these platforms promote consistency across the developed applications. So you have far greater quality and consistency throughout. You also have the hallmark of low-code, which is focusing on business requirements, not development costs, not mundane programming. And that also means that you can spend that time solving the actual problem rather than staffing up and learning new technologies to solve that problem. Another quote from Gartner: why is low code compelling? Well, they say it's because of productivity gains and speed of delivery benefits. And this is from their Magic Quadrant research. Let's ask Forrester. They said that using low code, it's going to give you about 10 times faster results than traditional methods. And I'm going to show you that it's actually going to be a whole lot more than that. So who can use low code? Earlier, I mentioned that low code development platforms are accessible and that you don't need to be a computer science graduate to use low code technologies. The pool of people in your organization really is extended to anyone. You can be a line of business developer, a business analyst, a non-IT professional, or you could be an IT professional. You could be a database developer or DBA or DevOps. And you personally watching this, I believe that you can use low code to solve problems. And this is where Oracle Apex enters the scene. We have been delivering the benefits of low code with Apex for many years. And I'd like to introduce it to you now. What is Apex? Apex is a low-code development platform that enables you to build secure, scalable enterprise apps with world-class features that can be deployed anywhere. And it runs anywhere the Oracle database runs. So you can really develop something and build it on all these different environments. The three key things you need to know about Apex is that it allows you to develop responsive web applications. You can visualize and maintain your data. And finally, you can apply SQL skills and database capabilities if you happen to know them. It's all optional. And the approach of Apex is that you're able to rapidly build something, customize it, iterate, and then deliver. And that means that there's pre-built controls for security, authentication, session management, and all sorts of things so that you can focus on developing and customizing and iterating towards the application and developing a solution rather than all the other complexity. Apex is available in all editions of the Oracle database, and it's a no-cost feature of the Oracle database. That means that if you have an Oracle database right now that's running in your company, you can use Apex. If you use Oracle Cloud and you have an Oracle Database Cloud service, you can use Apex. You can use Apex in any of our database cloud services, or you can even use a third-party cloud and still use Apex there. So what is Apex used for? Now, there's a number of compelling use cases, and I'll show you some of the most popular ones. The first thing is quite simple. Let's take a spreadsheet and turn it into a web application. I'm going to show you how I do this in just 5 minutes. Why would you want to do this? Well, now you can have a single source of truth. You can send out a URL and not a file. And you can build a multi-user secure application that can then be easily extended with charts and calendars, visualizations, validations, all sorts of things. And it all starts with a simple spreadsheet. How many times have we had to deal with spreadsheets that grow uncontrollable over time? One of the second most common use cases is rapid application development. You want to build applications fast, and sometimes there's a need to build applications in weeks or days, not months or years. And you can do this by using the powerful wizards integrated within the platform to build fully featured applications. You can modify them to meet changing business requirements. And these low-code capabilities means that you don't have to be a professional to put together some really highly rich and functional applications. And really, this gets down to, again, being opportunistic, being able to tackle a problem as it emerges. The best part about Apex and many low-code platforms is that you can develop solutions with just a handful of people. A very common use case for Apex is also to modernize Oracle Forms applications. It's really the natural evolution of forms. Both are based on SQL and PL SQL. You can reuse your database packages, procedures, functions. You can also train your existing forms developers to develop using Apex. Another very common use case is extending existing enterprise systems. All ERPs, COTS, commercial off-the-shelf software have gaps. Very often, our customers will use Apex to extend their ERPs and other enterprise software, and they'll use it to provide organization-specific dashboards, fill in the gaps, improve workflows, meet non-standard requirements, whatever it may be. And finally, you can use Apex to build mission-critical enterprise systems. And you can do this quickly. One thing that Apex does really well is that it's all part of the Oracle database. And that means that you can employ all of your governance and all of your security protocols directly within Apex. And you can build these solutions that can be deployed in just a matter of clicks. You can have a single installation of Apex that can run any number of applications, and you can scale to hundreds or thousands of users. We have systems today running on Apex that serve over 1 million daily active users. And you can scale with the database. So you can leverage all the enterprise features of the Oracle Autonomous Database or our Exadata infrastructure. So what does Apex do for you? If you look at an application, it may seem pretty simple. There's a UI and you have some controls in the screen. And that's not the complexity. It's all a facade. If you look behind the scenes, below that application, that's when you realize that there's a lot of functionality that is provided for you out of the box. For example, to deliver any quality application for the enterprise, here's a number of facets you must take into account. User interface. You'd have to be able to provide a customizable user interface that works on any device. Data access is completely handled for you. So you can build your own APIs. You can access data in any way you like. Rich visualizations. You can create secure applications by default. And as the security landscape changes, we improve Apex as well, so you're always safe. Full globalization support. So you can build applications that can be translated, that can be localized, and available in any language. And finally, there's a lot of performance and monitoring and debugging that comes baked in. Now, these are facets that are important to any applications. And we've proven this over the years with thousands and thousands of customers. The other thing that Apex does is it shields you from disruption. This chart is titled The Brutal Lifecycle of JavaScript Frameworks. And it's a little bit old now, but it goes to highlight that you can't always pick a winner immediately. The chart shows you the amount of questions posted on Stack Overflow for various different competing JavaScript libraries. And you can see that what works today may not necessarily work tomorrow. Most enterprises use some JavaScript framework, and that's totally fine, especially for the consumer-facing or flashy front end. But it's typically expensive and unnecessary for many back-office driven systems. If I could sum up everything I've talked about so far, I'd say low code is Apex. With Apex, what you can do with a single line of SQL, or not even typing that SQL at all and just selecting the table, you'd have to write a ton of code in JavaScript, for example. So we made this bold claim. We said that low code Oracle Apex is 20 times more productive than hand coding. And it's a bold statement. And we always thought it was an understatement. Countless customers have told us they've accomplished in days what it would have otherwise taken weeks or months. And these are smart full stack developers. So how true is this? How can we actually check if the statement that we're making that it's 20 times faster, how do we do that? Well, we commissioned a study. It's a time and motion study to look at React.js and to look at Apex. And we had an expert build an application in both technologies, new to Apex, a professional in React. And you can learn more about the study here, but they found that Apex is actually 38 times faster for development. So this is an expert that knows React really well, and to build the exact same application in both, which is a data entry and reporting application. Less code is less time, less complexity, less costs, right? The key value proposition here is that you're able to build solutions faster, have less technical debt, and spend less time on technical implementation and more time on solving the business need. Now, Apex has a rich product timeline. Back when it initially released as a product back in 2004 to now, with an upcoming release at 21.1, there have been 20 releases, over 250 major features. And the point I like to highlight is that there are 0 required rewrites. Because Apex is not a code generator, it's a metadata interpreter, you can take an application that was developed in Apex 10 years ago or 15 years ago and import that application today, and it's still going to work. Now, the UI may have changed a little bit. And if you had some very specific custom JavaScript that you wrote for Netscape Navigator, I don't know how that's going to work. But for the most part, your applications and the metadata around them, they're going to work just fine. Apex was recognized as a 2021 Gartner Peer Insights Customer Choice for Enterprise Low-Code Platforms. And what I saw that was particularly interesting is that Apex was rated 4.9 out of 5 based on 80 reviews over the last 12 months. And here's just a couple of interesting quotes. The key point I want to make is that Apex gives you limitless potential. Unlike many other platforms, there's no limits on the number of applications you can build, or the number of database objects you can have, or the number of developers that you can work with simultaneously, or the number of end users. You can really build a solution for whatever the need is. And based on that, I'd like to go into a quick demonstration to show you how I can take a spreadsheet and turn it into a fully fledged application. So in this quick demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a very simple application. I'm going to take a spreadsheet that I've got. I'm going to load it in. We're going to build an app. I'm going to show you the dashboard. I'll show you some of the ad hoc reporting capabilities. I'll show you this feature called faceted search. And then I'm going to show you that the entire app that you've just built here can be easily customized, and it has a mobile-friendly UI. All right. So now I'm in my Apex environment. and I'm using apex.oracle.com, but you can also sign up for a free service on our cloud. Just go to apex.oracle.com and you can learn all about it there. To get started, I'm going to simply go into the application builder and create a new application. In here, I'm going to say from a file, and I'll just go and drag and drop the file that I have. So I've got a tasks spreadsheet, which has a number of tasks, the project, the start date, the end date, the status, and so on. So I'll call this table tasks and then load data. Now, there's not a whole lot of data in here. It's just 73 rows, but this could easily have been several hundred thousands if I wanted. Let's go and create the application, and it's going to drop me into the wizard where I can go and customize my pages. So here, the wizard has already determined that I'd like a dashboard, a faceted search, an interactive report, a calendar based on the data that it saw. I can also optionally go and check some of these features I'd like to add to my applications to bootstrap it a little bit. For example, I could add access control, feedback, activity reporting, and so on. So I'll go ahead and check them all and then click on Create Application. All right, my application is now created and I'm in the Apex Builder here. I can see all of the pages I have. So I have about 29 pages or screens in my application. And I can click on this Run button to go and actually run this application. Okay, so now let me just sign in. And here's the application I just built, just by dragging in that spreadsheet. Now, I can open up the navigation and I can browse to different areas. And on the homepage, I have cards that show me the different pieces of my application. Let's go into the dashboard first. And here I can see some charts based on the data that I just uploaded. So what Apex did for me is it analyzed the data and it saw that, hey, this data might be interesting to you. So it created a chart on projects, projects by status, who the assignee is, and what the cost of the project is. I'm going to go into the faceted search page. And here I can go and filter on different aspects of the data that I have to go and find projects. For example, let me find all the projects assigned to John. The load packaged apps project that are open. So here's the one project. I can also go and search and clear things. I can also chart these things individually. So let's go and clear this filter on projects. And now I can see that John has these projects across different tasks, across different projects. This is a built-in component into Apex where it's just like online shopping, except all of the work, all of the calculations is all taken care of for you. The next page I want to go into is the reports page. So this is a component in Apex called an interactive report. I have the same data here, but it's in a tabular form. What this allows me to do is I can now customize this report and build ad hoc reports based on this data. So let's go and add a control break on project. And maybe I only want to see things that are open. Now, these are fairly simple customizations, and I can go and save these. I can say, let me go and save this report as projects, open projects. Okay, now I've got a saved report. I can come back in here anytime I want. But what's actually more interesting, and I'm going to go reset this report, is to get other insights. For example, let's go do a group by. So what I'd like to see is the total aggregate budget for a given project. So let's group by project, and I want to get the sum of the cost. And here's all my projects, and here's the sum of all of their tasks and how much they cost. I can also go and add a visualization. So let's go to the actions. I can go to chart. I can create a pie chart here, and I can say, let me do a pie chart on the status. Let me go show you a chart on how you can show the projects that you have and the same information earlier. So the cost of a given project charted for you, so you can see the same data visually. So here it is in a report format. Here's my group by on the different budgets, and here's the same information as a chart. Now, the last thing I want to show you is the administration section. So I got all of these features for free when I built my application. For example, I can go and add feedback, or I can allow my end users to provide feedback for me. Simply click on this little icon and say whatever the feedback was. Everything that I've shown you here will work just fine on a mobile device. So let me toggle into a mobile view really quickly. So I'm going to open up my developer tools, and just to simulate a mobile UI, here's what a mobile UI would look like. The same navigation works. I can still navigate around my application. I can still go and use the same functionality that was there. And everything here, no matter the dimensions of your device, are going to work just fine. The last thing I want to show you is something called Theme Roller. So you have your application and you want to update the UI of this. You can go into Theme Roller and customize the look and feel of this application. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the header accent color. So let's say my company is a bit more green. I can go and select the green from this color picker, and immediately the entire application color scheme is going to change. But if I don't want to pick a custom color, I can also load one of the existing themes that are provided. I can even go and load a completely dark mode theme and then simply just change the accent. And when I'm done, I can just go and save my theme. Set this as the current. And that's it. Now my application and all of the UI has been updated to work in dark mode. So that was a brief demonstration on how you can use Apex to build applications on a simple spreadsheet, but of course, there's a whole lot more. To get started with Apex, it's really quite simple. There are numerous ways you can get started. There's a always free service you can go and visit. There's the free tier that gives you quite a lot. And really, you can learn about all of this simply by visiting apex.oracle.com. And that concludes my presentation.